Penn State tight end Tyler Warren is making the case that he is a first-round prospect for the 2025 NFL Draft, and that's why he's a perfect prospect pairing for an NFC team. We'll tell you more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everyday. As you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. DP, today's show, we're going with perfect parents. You know what we're going to do, man. We're going to pick the prospect. We're going to pick the NFL franchise, and we're going to tell you why this needs to happen ASAP. Then we're going biggest draft storylines, right? We looked at the storylines. Where is this thing trending? What are the biggest draft storylines coming up? And then we're going to wrap this thing up with my favorite segment, but my name's not on it, Mr. Dames Dudes. We bringing it back. I'm putting DP on the hot seat. We're going to have some fun. DP, let's get into this perfect parent show.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Perfect prospect pairing, Keith. I am putting, we just talked about him on yesterday's show a little bit, Tyler Warren, right? A guy who is arguably making a case for him to be a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft class. And I'm putting Tyler Warren, perfect fit to the Philadelphia Eagles in the back end of the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. When you look at what Tyler Warren is, 6'6", 260, he's coming off of a game against Purdue, Keith, 8 targets, 8 catches, 127 yards receiving. He had the receiving touchdown. Then you flip it. He plays Wildcat quarterback, 3 rushes, 63 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He's got in the last 2 weeks, he has 3 rushing touchdowns. In my scouting report at Bleach Report, I said he is Taysom Hill, but an actual tight end. Like, he does the same type of stuff that Taysom Hill does, but he can actually play tight end right out the gate. And when you look at the tight end room for the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is why I feel like this is the move to make for me, you have Dallas Goedert, right? You have Grant Calcaterra, E.J. Jenkins, C.J. Uzomah, Griffin Herbert. I mean, Dallas Goedert is almost 30 years old. Grant Calcaterra played at SMU. He battled, I believe, concussions. I thought at one point he was like medically retired, if I remember correctly, and everything. So you can't, you know what I mean, even though he's about to be 26, you can't really bank on him staying healthy. And even with Dallas Goedert, still a good tight end, he doesn't give you anything after the catch. And when you see that how this team, the team that uses the tush push, the heavy quarterback sneak and Jalen Hurts' legs, I could just imagine the way that they could create passing concepts off of motioning Jalen to wide receiver like Penn State does with Drew Aller, putting Tyler Warren as the Wildcat quarterback, actually running the power game with the you know, like in the counter with the GH, the H back and the guard pulling and leading him. Then you kind of flip that to him snapping, faking the run, throwing it to Jalen Hurts, and now you got a deep receiver cutting across the middle of the field, and Jalen just throwing it to either Smitty or AJ Brown. Doesn't really matter. I think that is they have yet to find a true wide receiver 3 in Philly when you have those 2 1A, 1B wide receivers. Tyler Warren at 6'6", 260. He's still developing as a run blocker. This is a former high school quarterback. So he only played full-time tight end the last 4 years of his life. And that's been at Penn State. He's got the frame and everything. Got to add a little bit more functional strength at the point of attack, but I think he can develop as a run blocker. But as a pass catcher and just a mismatch creator, Keith, I think it was at one point in the game, he played 13 snaps outside as like an X receiver, like 12 snaps in the slot, snaps at Wildcat quarterback, snaps at tight end, snaps at H-back, like played fullback. He does all these different things. And yeah, for me, I think you put him in that Philly offense where they like to be creative. They like to do different things to stress you. And you got Saquon. I forget they got Saquon Barkley. I don't know how I forgot they got Saquon Barkley because he's ripping and running right now.
I was wondering if you was gonna put him in the package, DP. I was trying to see.
Yeah. I gotta get him. Heck, I might put Saquon at the Wildcat quarterback and run some handoffs to Tyler Warren, man. I just think that would just open their playbook up so much more, and defenses would have a hard time taking away AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Like, you gotta go into your meeting room as a defensive group, Keith. All right, who's the problem? Who are we doubling? Because if we double somebody, someone else is getting single coverage. And I think that's a situation where Tyler Warren can absolutely exploit that.
Yeah, DP, I like that. And then I see you got in your bag a little bit, man. You drawing up plays, drawing up schemes. You almost came back with the Philly special, baby. You almost drew up another Philly special.
Very close. Very close, Keith. Very close.
I'm DP, my perfect pairing. I'm going with this guy, man. Detroit Lions back into the first round. I'm really close to elevating them to this part. South Carolina edge rusher Kyle Kennard. Time to start talking about him as a back end of the first round type of football player. I think you like, because I did the Donovan Iziriku for my mock draft a couple weeks ago, right? But I think if I had to elevate one over the other right now, based off of size and power, I'm probably going with Kyle, right? And looking at Kyle, him playing like he's another Detroit Lion type of football player, right? Like, he'd be tough, he's gonna be scrappy, he's gonna be the lunch pail guy. Then you're talking about him learning from Aiden Hutchinson, right? How to get the job done, and then him not having to be the number one option either. He'll be that complimentary piece. That's gonna be good. DP, we talked about the lack of consistency in this class, right? Just as far as guys showing up. DP, we've played 10, 11 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. And he's had at least one sack in all of those games, well, at least a half a sack. Of the 9 games, it was only one, and that was a Texas A&M game that he didn't show up, right? But he has now, since the Missouri game, 10.5 sacks on the season. The guy's just flat out showing up at the end of the day, DP. And you can attribute it to like, oh, okay, maybe he got lucky, but not luck doesn't happen for 10.5 sacks, right? Like, he's getting after, and there's something that he's doing, and I want to give him his credit. And like I said, just after I did the final evaluation on him, and I'm like, nah, this guy can play football as a stand-up edge rusher. And
he's listed as 6'5", 255, so he has the NFL frame and body type.
Yep.
But and some people be like, man, where did he come from? He was at Georgia Tech last year. And if you turn the tape at Georgia Tech, he made plays for Georgia Tech as well. It's just the fact that, hey, they couldn't keep him. He was at Georgia Tech. Nobody knew about him, right?
Same thing with Jahmyr Gibbs, right? If Jahmyr, they wouldn't have been the same conversation.
And jumped right to Bama and became a top 12 pick, right? And even just from a number standpoint, he got 5. You're talking about the 10.5 sacks. He has 5 hits on the QB. He has 20 pressures and hurries. His pass rush win rate overall is 14%, but his true drop back pass rush win rate jumps to 20%. So when quarterbacks drop back, and that bodes well for that defensive front that Detroit has. When Aiden Hutchinson returns fully healthy and ready to go next year, he might start on PUP. We don't know. But when he returns and he's healthy, he's ready to go. You think about Jordan having to get to Caleb Williams, get to Jordan Love, get to J.J. McCarthy on true drop back sets. Having 2 guys instead of 1, it changes everything, because teams are going to want to slide protection to Aiden. Let's keep him out of the way. But if you got a guy that says that you absolutely, and then because they still have the James Houston kid who they got out of the young man out of HBCU a couple years. Yeah, like then you get real creative with your pass rush packages, because we know Aiden can do some stuff standing up, or even with his hand in the dirt against guards. You know what I mean? With his quickness, his strength, his hand usage. Now you got Kyle Kennard and maybe Aiden lined up on the same side, and you got James Houston as that fastball bendy edge rusher off the opposite side. Where you gonna slide protection to that double team side? You're gonna try to get Kyle Kennard a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-2 special and keep 3 guys over there for him and Aiden. That gives James Houston 1-on-1 to get to your quarterback. It will really help this defense overall, because they need that other edge rusher. I like the Kyle Kennard pairing to the Detroit Lions, Keith.
Yep, DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the biggest draft storylines, right? What trends to pay attention to? Where is this thing going with the 2025 NFL draft? We're going to talk about it coming up next.
Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Zbiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Zbiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. Zbiotics is back with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You don't want to miss out on this deal? That's fine. I'll help you. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Biggest draft storylines coming off of week 12 of the college football season. Keith, when I look at the wide receiver class for the 2025 NFL draft, I think that it's a good class. It's not a great class, but this class is filled with more wide receiver 2s and 3s than wide receiver 1s. And is that a terrible thing? Not necessarily, right? Like if you're a team, like you look at the Minnesota Vikings, you have Jordan Addison, you have Justin Jefferson, you got 1 and a 2. Who's your wide receiver 3? You can grab a guy in the 5th round that could walk in as a rookie and play that slot role for you. Be that you go empty concepts with JJ McCarthy next year. You can get that speed threat. You can get that if you want a big body guy. You can get that. Like there's a lot of different body types in this class. But that was when I really started looking at the wide receivers in this class. I said, man, it's a talented group. It's a group of pass catchers that can make plays in a variety of ways. Now we gotta wait to see who decide. Like, is Elik Ayomanor, is he gonna declare or is he going to go back to school? You know what I mean? It's just some guys that might not come out, but like a Kobe Hudson, one of the guys that we like at UCF, like, man, you think a team that has a bona fide wide receiver 1 wouldn't take him as their wide receiver 2, 3 early in his career? Yep. One of the better release packages in college football, route running, separation, hands, and ball skills. He has all of that. So when I look at this class, it's probably my biggest takeaway is that teams that if you need a number 1 guy, you better be close to the top. Like you better be up there to try and, well, for one, pray that Travis Hunter says, I want to be a wide receiver. That's the first thing. You know what I mean? To help the class out. Like, you got to pray for that. But they also, like, be up there for Tatori McMillan. Like the Dallas Cowboys, like, you don't need a wide receiver 1 because you got one. But if you can get Tatori McMillan, you know what I mean, and pair him with CeeDee Lamb.
Punch. Yep.
That is a 1-2 punch that Dak Prescott will be happy to throw to rather than trying to throw the CeeDee Lamb in double coverage and hope Jalen Tolbert gets open and does his job. Hope Brandon Cooks still has enough left in the tank. And, well, now it's Jonathan Mingo. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what that's going to look like. So it's like, so I think that's my biggest takeaway is that this wide receiver class, it is good. But if you need a wide receiver 1, you better be willing to either be at the top or move up to get to the top. Right. And suffer, give up some picks to go get it to Tatori McMillan to be that number 1 wide receiver for you. Or, hey, if you already got your number 1, this is a draft for you. You can get your 2, 3, and maybe even your wide receiver 4 on a nice rookie deal. Of guys that can come in and play special teams, play as that wide receiver 4 in 11 personnel, different things like that. Still a good group, but definitely more 2s and 3s.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Just watching it, right? And honestly, I had that thought. I can't remember what I was doing. I I might have been filling out like team needs or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And I was just thinking about, okay, cool. And I literally, it's funny that you said that because I literally had this exact scenario with the Minnesota Vikings because I was doing their team needs. And I'm like, looking at the rest, I'm like, they got Justin Jefferson. They got Jordan Addison. I'm like, wide receiver 3. And I know they got like Jalen Nailor and stuff, right? But it's like, do you want to have a more well-rounded wide receiver 3 situation, right? Overall, so I agree that you can find that value in the 4th, 5th round because some teams are going to misevaluate these guys, and these guys will be a lot more talented than what they're giving or what people feel about them. And then it's always trendy wide receivers, and then it's always wide receivers that's going to run really fast 40s, and they're going to jump up out of nowhere. So it's a lot to definitely pay attention to. DP, my storyline. We kind of talked about this before, but I have another name to even add to this list, and it's going to be an interesting evaluation. And it's I got to talk about this too. I'm gonna put this tweet out. This is the year of the hybrid linebacker, right? And we talked about Abdul Carter. We talked about Jalen Walker, right, showing up. The other name that I want to add to this list is Jahad Campbell. I watched this LSU game, and so what happened was I watched Jahad before the LSU game. And I thought he was a solid player. I thought he was a smart football player. I thought he had, good movement skills, good length, things like that. They put him in different situations. But I think the LSU game was the beginning of painting the picture of who he could be because they actually lined him up outside and let him get off pass rushes, right? And that's what he gave. I mean, LSU has 2 offensive tackles that people think are top 100 players, right? And that's where he began to give LSU problems. And I think that began the kind of momentum for him too. I think for his own self, right? Like you started to see like him play with more reckless abandon because there's certain things, like I said, I watched him and I came in with like a low 2nd round-ish type of grade, right? Like good football player in this class. I thought Deontay Lawson was a better true linebacker than what he is.
Yeah.
But he looking at the LSU game, right, and using that as a potential pivot point, he does something different than what Deontay does. And I think they're more actual complementary pieces than what they are trying to compare them apples to apples. It's more of an apples to oranges, but in a very best way. And I even thought about guys that we've had in the past, like a Drew Sanders, right? And remember, because I remember him from high school, and remember I came on a call and I was like, hey, this guy played edge rush or something. And I want to go back to Jahad's high school film, and I would not be surprised if he played defensive end in high school, just from his length and his build.
No, 100%. And on the season, to what you're saying, he only has 82 pass rush snaps. He's converted 6 of those into sacks. He has 8 hurries, a QB hit. His pass rush win rate, 14%. It goes up to like 15% on true dropback sets. And this is a guy that's listed at 6'3", 244. And it's crazy because I was watching Kyron Lacy and against Bama, and it was like a 3x1 set. Kyron was the 3 in the 3x1 set, close to the formation, close to the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And he ran, I think, either a shake route or a quick hitch. And there was Jahad in coverage. And Jahad like clamped him. And I was like, whoa. Like, I looked at the number. I was like, is that a safety? I said, oh no, that's the linebacker. And you know what I mean? I was like, okay, like that play stood. I rewinded it a couple times. I was like, oh no, this was great coverage. Like he's playing off coverage, he's reading it right, he's eliminating like the type of routes that can be ran at him, and he's cutting off inside leverage. He's like, yeah, you don't have many places to go, especially when you got other receivers running routes around you. I just squeezed to where the leverage is, and I'm fine. And he did just that, and he made a play on the ball by breaking the pass up, because I was like, if he doesn't get there to the spot, it's probably a touchdown. It was right at the goal line. You know what I mean? And Garrett Nussmeier fired it in there. But Jahad, broke the pass up, and then watching them blitz. Like he does so many different things for that defense. He'll blitz from the off, but like up the A gap. Like you said, rush off the edge. And it's just like, man, like, and it's crazy. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Nobody's talking about this linebacker class. Like, it's all, hey, quarterbacks, are they good or not? Offensive linemen, I don't think I'm out. It's all about Ashton Genty. It's this guy and that guy. Is like, guys, like the safety class is good. The linebacker class is, the interior defensive line class is good. This is a class. This is a draft class that you're gonna be able to find you some high level playmakers, man, on the defensive side of the ball. And if you got defensive woes, you can fix them in this draft class if you do it right.
Well, nah, DP, you're right. And what I'm starting to see is with this draft class, you know how like in the past, right, with the mock drafts, we kind of like backload wide receivers, right? Like we throw in a Xavier Legette and Keon Coleman, and like you just kind of have a Xavier Worthy, right? Like that was the last year's thing where you just kind of backload. But this is probably going to be backloaded defenders, DP. Like you said, the Campbells, the Deontay Lawson potential, Kyle Kennard, right? We still had to figure out like where the guys like James Pierce and what are people going to do with Michael Williams, right? Just all of those things. And I think there's even more edge rushers out there that we haven't talked about. Like I had Donovan Ezeriku, right? The back end of mine. So I think that's what's going to happen. And honestly, the other part is that you still have to figure out this corner class, right? There's still a lot more to figure out as far as ranking these corners. So it's a lot to get to, DP, overall, just with this draft class, but I think it's going to make it fun and exciting. I know I'm excited for it, just to kind of flush it out and then, kind of come up with my own ideas and thoughts about where this draft class is going to go.
100%, man. I think one thing we consistently say, Keith, is that with this class, because there's no true consensus outside of like wide receiver 1 and like, I think that might be it. No, interior defensive line 1 is Mason Graham. Like nobody's taking that spot from him. You know what I mean? Everything else is,
open.
I mean, the safety spot, you might say Malachi Starks, but I finally started really getting into Xavier Watts, and he had the interception this past week and everything, and whatnot. Like I have that up on Twitter and everything. So like, just there's some discussions at every position outside of maybe 1 to 2. Whereas like everything else is wide open and there's no consensus. Rankings are going to look like everybody's rankings are going to be all preference, size, athleticism. It's going to be based on how people really feel about the position.
Yeah, 100%. With DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. It's my favorite segment, Dames, Dudes. Yes, stay tuned. I'm putting DP on the hot seat. I got some hot names, right? I got some well-known names. So we're going to be able to hold DP accountable, see what's going on, see if he let these guys in the club, out of the club. And I'll tell you this, a couple of these names, if he kick them out the club, they come in the Keith's club, right? So coming up next, man, Dames, Dudes.
Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Man, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or a hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/lockedon NFL. That's joinbilt.com/lockedon NFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. It's Dames Dudes. Keith has 5 prospects from week 12 to throw in line and see if I'm going to let them in the club, give them a stamp, or they got to go back to their dorm room. Keith, let's get it going.
DP, let's start this thing with Oregon running back Jordan James. Is he in the club, out of the club?
Oh, Jordan James. Oh, yeah, he's in the club, man. He had a great game Saturday night. 25 carries, pull up his numbers, 25 carries, 121 yards rushing, almost 5 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And truthfully, Keith, he was somebody that probably could have made the game ball segment on yesterday, because Oregon's offense, like, it ran through him, and like Dylan Gabriel didn't play well. He had an interception. Like that Wisconsin team, they were collapsing the pocket, making it muddy, and he was struggling. He had some timely throws late, but their plays, it ran that team's offensive success ran through Jordan James, man. 5'10", 210. Like, yeah, and I was talking to agent buddy of mine. He asked me about his game. And I said, man, like, this was a couple weeks ago. I said, this was like the beginning of the season, after like the first couple of weeks. He said, man, like, what do they need to do? I said, they need to run through Jordan James, run the ball through him, run the offense through him, set the play action pass up, set everything up, the RPO game for Dylan Gabriel. And ever since they started really giving him the rock, like, the offense is taking off, man. Yeah, he's in the club, Keith.
I like that DP, and I think he's one of the best backs that nobody's talking about at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. We're going to talk about Harold Fannin Jr., tight end from Bowling Green, in the club, out of the club.
Harold Fannin Jr., 6'4", 230. Oh, he's in the club. This is I have him as his grade right now between him and Tyler Warren. They're like right there, like almost tied in terms of grades for me right now. He's come off a game against Western Michigan, 10 of 12, 137 yards, receiving 2 receiving touchdowns. Like, he's a talented pass catcher. And the crazy thing about it is, like, watching him, like, I was watching pancake guys in the pass blocking game. Like, he plays with some level of physicality. I want him to get a little stronger in the lower halves, get a little thicker down there, add a little bit more weight in his legs. But man, like, teams go in there every week knowing who's getting the ball for Bowling Green. It's Harold Fannin Jr. They haven't stopped him yet.
You can't stop.
Yeah, no, you can't stop him, man. I can't stop him getting in the club if I wanted to. Keith, he's in there.
Well, DP, right now we 2 for 2, man. But this name is interesting. I'm seeing if we go 3 for 3. You rarely go 3 for 3, DP. We're going with Tennessee edge rusher James Pierce Jr. Is he in the club? The club.
James Pierce Jr. is in the club for me, Keith. He didn't get a sack. Credit that to Carson Beck and his nimble-footedness in the pocket. He broke free a couple times when James Pierce got back there, but he got back there a decent amount. Had a high pass rush win rate of 18% overall. And then on true dropback sets, it jumped to almost 29%, 28.5. And again, like he drew like a holding penalty where he would have had the sack. He forced Carson Beck out of the pocket. He forced him to throw a ball deep quick that he didn't. I didn't feel like Carson wanted to make that throw. He didn't want to throw that ball because the guy wasn't open yet, but he was like, forget it. I'm not taking the sack. You know what I mean? And what I liked about watching, and I watched the tape, he's working that inside counter. And I'm like, there we go. Don't just be a speed guy around the edge. Can you force those tackles to get deep in their drop and work inside? And he beat the left and right tackle multiple times with the inside jab step counter move. He's in the club. I like what he was able to do. Again, not able to get the sack, but he got held. Carson Beck was like, listen, I'm not getting sacked today. I'm getting out of this pocket and I'm gonna make some plays. So yeah, James Pierce Jr. He was truthfully, he was the only defensive lineman for Tennessee that I noticed on film actually get back there consistently. And I was like, man, if the other guys came to the party, they might have been able to keep Carson Beck in the pocket and brought him down. So James Pierce Jr. is in the club.
I like that, DP. Let's keep going, man, to another playmaker. Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton, in the club, out of the club.
Not this week. Ty's not in the club this week. Maryland's offense typically runs straight through him. And I mean, he had 14 targets again this weekend against Rutgers, but he had 6 catches for 61 yards. He did have a receiving touchdown, but he also had, I believe, 1 or 2 drops and everything. It was just kind of a weird game for him because he's a heavily targeted young man in that offense. He is their number 1 receiver, bar none. There's no question about it. But 6 of 14, the conversion rate is low in that situation, and just the impact wasn't really felt outside of like that touchdown reception. At one point, I felt like Caden Prather, the receiver, the big 6'4" receiver that people were expecting to be the wide receiver 1 this year, felt like he was making more of an imprint and stamp on the game for most of it than Felton. So Felton's not in the club, Keith.
All right, cool. Let's wrap this thing up with I see one of my favorite guys, right? Edge rusher from Boston College, Donovan Izariku, in the club, out of the club.
Man, DE is not in the club this week. He's been, he would have been in the club every single week because he's been balling all season. But this was a game, that he just wasn't really impactful. Against SMU, they had success running the ball. They had success throwing the ball as well. And his presence was not felt. I know at one point he did go off. I think he had like a shoulder injury and everything. But like as a pass rusher in this game, he had 2 pressures. Pass rush win rate below 10%. True drop back pass rush rate was 7%. And it was just like, you didn't really expect to see that from him. Not a guy like him who's been getting after the quarterback all season long. True drop back pass rush rate was like 14, but his overall was 9.4. I'm sorry. Just his impact wasn't truly felt in this game. And then the run game stuff kind of reared his head. Like they were able to run the ball. We talked about Rashad Smith yesterday. not be able to set the edge and hold up at the point of attack at times really hurt
Yep.
that defense. So he's not in the club this week.
Yeah, DP. Nah, so we went what 1, 2, 3 for 5. We started off hot, and then you got a little bit more anger towards the back end of it, right? Like we had a standard that we had to set, so everybody couldn't get in. But look, we understand it over here, and guess what? There's always next week, right? There's always next week. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being on every day. On tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about the best landing spots for Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. A guy that's kind of up and down, but he's coming off of probably his best game of the season against Georgia. What's the best NFL landing spot in the offense to really maximize his skill set? We'll tell you tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.